Haley, welcome to our session today and our chance to chat, learn a little bit, chat for a little bit. Haley's title of her session is Aligning a Museum's Digital Strategy with its Physical Transformation. Part of the delight in my life is that I get to meet professionals all over the world who are contributing to widening the landscape and the aperture of digital asset management. Little did I know when I was meeting Haley, I would meet someone who actually does do physical transformation and is a commander of the field of 3D printing. So everything else aside, Haley, along with your leadership in digital in Cleveland, thanks for such an enjoyable time getting to know you and your work and your skills and what they're bringing to our field. On that note, welcome. I'll turn this over to you and see you in a few minutes for questions.
All right. Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Haley Majeski, and I am the Digital Asset Manager at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. I have been at the institution for about 8 years now, and I have worked along many different titles, including Digital Asset Technician and Digital Asset Developer. Some of the things I work on here involve active involvement in ongoing collections digitization and data publication. I advise museum standards for specimen data, formats, policies regarding digital assets and digital strategy, oversee the creation of research-grade specimen scans using structured light, collaborate cross-departmentally on ways to integrate digital assets into programming and exhibits, and many more. And my approach to digital asset management is very heavily influenced by the time I spent digitizing our collections. So really quick, I want to start a little bit with what do we aspire to do at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. So our mission is to inspire through science and education, a passion for nature, the protection of natural diversity, the fostering of health, and leadership to a sustainable future. We aim to inspire in our local and global audiences an enduring sense of connection with the natural world, and we strive to become an essential destination for Northeast Ohio residents and visitors of all ages and backgrounds. A major contributor to the economic, educational, and civic vitality of our city, and a beacon for promoting science literacy worldwide. And before I even get into the digital transformation that we have undergone, I do have to start with a little bit of context behind the actual physical transformation that is happening on our campus. So we are in the middle of a $150 million expansion, which includes the complete reinstallation of our exhibitions and development of new public spaces. Our goal is to reinvent our entire complex to tell a unified story of life, not on a timeline, but by illustrating biological and geological processes in relation to human impact. We use a community-centered and inquiry-based approach in our efforts to tell a unified story of life and the forces that shape our planet. And the transformation is underpinned by a vision to promote scientific literacy and empower individuals to be a voice for the planet and their communities. So our construction, phase one of our construction actually began in March of 2015. So we have been under physical construction for almost a full decade. Key reopenings of our building include our new Wildlife Center, which houses our living collections in 2016, our state-of-the-art renovated auditorium and our brand new courtyard in 2021, and our brand new front entrance and with new educational spaces in December of 2022. The architectural design of the building weaves together the original museum building, which includes 6 expansions that did not really coordinate very well with one another, that were all put through the past century into a unified complex, which is based upon the history of glaciation in Northeast Ohio. The latest milestone in this project was the opening in October 2023 of a brand new visitor hall, which is a free community space that showcases 8 of the museum's most iconic objects and specimens. This almost 15,000 square foot gallery features these icons placed along a timeline of the Earth, which marks key events in the history of the universe, with every inch representing 1 million years. The specimens showcased in the visitor hall have played a significant role in the museum's history. Many are famous because of their ties to the region or their overall contribution to science. The sauropod that you see in this photo is Haplocanthosaurus delphi, who is not only the holotype of its species, but is also the inspiration behind our museum logo. And now it is available for free to view for everyone. These specimens will serve as a gateway to the museum's future dynamic earth and evolving life wings, which encourage visitors to dive deeper. And in these wings, which are slated to open in December of 2024, our new exhibits will take a new approach to natural history, avoiding traditional compartmentalization by time period, geography, or types of living things to form integrated storylines of planetary and biological processes and make these powerful forces tangible and relevant to contemporary life. So how does our digital transformation actually coincide with this? It's been going alongside our museums since basically the ground broke. The first major part of it was large focus on specimen data and making our data sets available online. This required building up a robust infrastructure of collaborative workspaces, digital backups, and amendments to various policies, including asset management, data governance standards, how we share our information, when and where. One of the newest milestones in our digital transformation was the founding of the Department of Digital in 2022. We work at the intersection of IT and marketing, leveraging technology to expand our intellectual property and increase our relevance in an increasingly technological world. Our goal is to deliver experiences which inspire awe and wonder of the natural world, a curiosity for the scientific study of it, and a drive to engage in it. And the way that we work in the digital department is there's really three core pillars to our department. There is technology, creative, and project management, and they each form different parts of the major wheel of content creation. But digitization and asset management are at the core of everything that we do, because collections ultimately are the heart of any museum. Without a digitized collection and an infrastructure to make them accessible, we would never be able to tell creative, unique experiences using them. So as technology evolved, we began looking at other methods of digitizing our collections. Structured light scanning really caught our eye. This is a method of 3D digitization, which involves projecting patterns of light onto an object, measuring the distortions in the pattern, and then that allows you to capture surface geometry in research-grade detail. So a lot of these will go down to sub-millimeter accuracy. The goals of the digitization project have remained the same, even throughout all of this. Our goal is to digitally replicate collections assets, improve collection accessibility, enhance the use of our collections in education and exhibits while preserving the original specimen, and leveraging these assets for new digital experiences. So 3D digitization began in 2021 with the acquisition of the Artex Spacefighter. This is a scanner that is really meant to digitize medium to small size objects. So think something from like the size of a pine cone to the size of a relatively large dinosaur skull. So I would go for about basically the size that you're looking at right here. This allowed us to really start exploring various ways to tell stories of our collections. We have also acquired additional equipment, which allows us to render nearly all of our objects in 3D, of which we have 5 million in our collections. The Artec Leo is able to scan objects as large as our full Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, and the Artec Micro can scan objects smaller than a human jaw, all of them in research-grade detail. And the smallest thing we've scanned with the Micro so far is a shark tooth that is about this big. So far, over 500 specimens have been made available to the public since the inception of the 3D program, and there's many, many, many more coming. So of course, with a new type of data, it means that we needed to establish new guidelines. Things like where do we keep them? Where do we store them while they're being used? Where do we store them while they're being processed? Do we have the technological capacity? Do we have a computer powerful enough to even render all of this data? And so what we ended up doing is admittedly not the nicest way to do it, but we kind of had to learn it as we went. And you never realize just how much data you are creating until you are elbow deep in 2 different grants and suddenly you need a new 80 terabyte hard drive. So projects right now that are currently being worked on are stored on the cloud, on a local cloud until the project is complete. From there, we move our data into archival storage on our digital asset management system. And then we have 2 different versions of each render. We have a low resolution version of them, which are meant for online exhibition because they load very, very quickly and they're able to be interacted with, and as long as you have internet. And then there's the high resolution versions, which are really useful for research related purposes, replication, and other original content. So the ideal interconnected web between our collection management system and our digital asset management system really involves these two objects being able to talk to each other. So obviously collections management systems traditionally hold things like the taxonomic determination of a specimen, location history, what publications has a specimen been used in, what information do we have on how it was collected, where was it collected, the information on the accession and how it's prepared. And while a digital asset management system has the ability to house original content and images, various information on exhibits, the archival information, marketing material that we've used. And so being able to combine these two into a unified system not only allows us to tell information about the specimen from a research and scientific perspective, but it also allows us to tell a story of how we have interacted with the specimen throughout its time at our institution. And that is what I am really looking forward to being able to do in the next couple of years. And another fun thing is that our digital transformation, and especially how digitization focused we have been, has also given back to our physical transformation as well. So the digitization initiatives were key components of two highly competitive federal grants that we were awarded in the last year and a half. The first one was for preserving and increasing access to Hamantaud non-human primate collection. The goals of this project were to rehouse the collection in archival boxes with new cabinetry, macerate unprepared skeletons to increase research access to more specimens that have traditionally never been able to be used, and to digitize a representative skull from all 76 species available in our collection. And to give you an idea, we have about 1,000 individual primate skeletons in this particular collection. I am proud to say that our digitization goal was reached 2 weeks ago. We now are able to expand our efforts to showcase things like sexual dimorphism, various interesting things where you have disease or injury present in the skeleton, or digitizing full articulated skeletons. And this is particularly important because these scans have already been used not only in classroom lectures, both at a high school and college level, but they've also been used in other institutions' accessibility programs across the globe. The newest one we have was for saving a lost ecosystem, which is restoring and exploring the exceptionally preserved fossils of the Cleveland Shale. So the Cleveland Shale is, if you have ever been in the Northeast Ohio area, those very large shale cliffs that you'll find, specifically in the Cuyahoga Valley. This was actually a shallow tropical seafloor 360 million years ago. And so a large proportion of the fossils that you find in this area are from the Cleveland Shale. And they also, and as such, they represent a large portion of our vertebrate paleontology, invertebrate paleontology, and paleobotany collections. Unfortunately, with Cleveland Shale, the Cleveland Shale has a component in it that is pyrite. And there's two different types of pyrite. There is stable pyrite, which most people will likely know of as fool's gold. That is that really large, stable, like geometric structure. And then there's unfortunately unstable pyrite, which is when it reacts with oxygen and water, it forms things like iron sulfate and sulfuric acid. So anything with what's called pyrite disease will decay as the pyrite oxidizes, and it expands several times its original volume and basically turns the fossil to dust. And I think you can probably guess which is the most prevalent type of pyrite in this specific collection. So the goals of this particular collection are to rehouse specimens in climate-controlled low humidity cabinetry. We are also going to be photographing every single specimen and 3D scanning type specimens, reference specimens, so anything that has been referenced in a paper so that those have access. Those things that are showing signs of pyrite disease, which allow us to preserve the 3D morphology of these things and say, at this point in time, it looked exactly like this, so that if they end up going worse in the future, we still have a record of what it looked like that could promote the science for it. And as part of this grant, we will also be collaborating with our educational department to create educational 3D kits for our Educator Resource Center online. These kits will empower teachers to use the technology available in their local makerspaces to teach dual lessons. One about how to use a 3D printer using ready-to-print versions of our specimens, and then conducting a traditional lesson using real objects from our collections. And so with this wealth of data, we also began exploring other avenues of interaction with our specimens, which ultimately led to the purchase of 2 3D printers in 2022. This level of manufacturing allows us to rapidly create objects in-house to engage the public in new ways, allowing them to do things like touch, handle, and like physically interact with objects that are traditionally only viewable behind glass while still preserving the actual specimen long term. And this also allows us to display specimens that are too fragile to be damaged or displayed traditionally. So to give you some context behind this slide, this is a specimen of Dunkleosteus torelli, which is an extinct fossil fish that lived in the Cleveland area 360 million years ago, and it is actually the Ohio State fossil fish as of 2021. This particular specimen was actually out on exhibit until probably around 2006 or 2007, where it was taken off the exhibit due to the amount of pyrite disease that was found in the specimen, removed from its original armature, and returned to the research collection and storage. What we were able to do is 3D scan each of the individual pieces and then 3D print a life-sized replica of it and mount it back on the original armature, which was created by our very first fossil preparator in the 1920s. This replica was on display in the Ohio State House in 2023, and I'm excited to announce that it will be on exhibit in our actual public galleries starting tomorrow in a temporary exhibit called Finding Dunkleosteus. And the animation that you see here is of the exact same specimen, and it's showing you how these really remarkable animals actually opened and closed their mouths, which is very much not like most other vertebrates. They actually open their mouth at a full 45-degree angle and probably use a little bit of suction to move stuff into their mouth. It was kind of terrifying, and it's really interesting actually being able to see the real fossil do the actual things. And as part of our ongoing initiative to redevelop our educational programming to align with our new spaces, 3D technology allows us to really enhance our educational collections with replicas of real specimens in our collections, helping us teach very highly personalized stories that are grounded in our institutional research and history. So let me give you another example. This is Balto. So Balto was part of, so in 1925, there was a large diphtheria outbreak in Nome, Alaska. At the time, there was a serum that helped combat diphtheria, but the closest serum to Nome was over 600 miles away, and a blizzard had basically completely covered all of Alaska. And so the only way they were able to get this to Nome was through a series of 20 dog sleds. So Balto was the lead of the final team of dogs that in what is now known as the Serum Run. He was the one who did the final 55-mile stretch into Nome, Alaska, and delivered the serum to the actual city, which saved many, many lives. After this, there's a fun Cleveland story in which a Cleveland businessman found Balto and several of his dog sled mates in a dime museum in Los Angeles several years later, and due to the treatment of them, decided to return to Cleveland and raise money to purchase them and bring them to Cleveland to spend the rest of their lives in retirement. It was successful. Balto and his teammates all arrived in Cleveland in 1928, and they spent the rest of their lives in what is now the Cleveland Zoo until he passed in 1933, in which place he was taxidermied and is now part of our permanent collections. And so what we were able to do with him is 3D scan him. And so now we have a fully accurate digital model of Balto. So imagine the interactives that we were able to do with this if we are able to animate him, have him, say, at the lead of an actual dog sled running through our visitor hall in AR, or other things that I'm so excited about the possibilities that we have with these. And that also allows us to 3D print him. So 3D printing some of these specimens allows guests with especially sight impairments to interact with Balto in the first space for pretty much the first time ever, because unfortunately you can't really touch taxidermy, but you can touch an exact replica of them. So ultimately, this digitization effort is at the heart of our ongoing transformation and an exciting first step into new ways to share our wealth of knowledge with the wider community and placing the museum at the forefront of innovation. Digital specimens act as a virtual extension of our physical museum, allowing us to create engaging content able to be delivered beyond our walls and expand our relevance and reach worldwide. We recognize that technology is also always improving. New digitization techniques will form from old ones, and along with it, there will be new ways to engage with the public and further the museum's mission. The framework we're building today will be the foundational bedrock of digital initiatives for decades to come. Thank you.
Here, Heidi. Okay, there we go. Haley, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate the arc of storytelling that so embeds the work that you do, and in so many different ways. It was really a delight to hear how you frame so many of the digital initiatives. And I think this is such as I said in my opening remarks, we have the capability with the technology such as what you're using to invert the paradigm here and think from the visitor in rather than the data out. Things that have been kept in the sterility of these siloed systems, great, they're there, we know they're there. That's inventory management. This is a world of experiential and of narrative storytelling. So I commend your leadership in this and thank you for it. And still can't wait to come see all those little things that you've made 3D models of. We've had some interesting questions. There they are. Interesting questions come up. And some of these, as you would expect, are governance and kind of strategically oriented, because you're emblematic of trend lines in GLAMP initiatives. And one question has come in, how do you keep leadership invested in these numerous digital initiatives, especially when there's split focus among different physical transformations, the building initiatives, and the digital discipline that has to underlie each?
So we're actually really fortunate in that one of the members of senior leadership is also the director of science, who is very heavily invested in specimen digitization. And really good ways that we've been able to even just show the value of making sure the digital asset management goes through. As we are currently finalizing a lot of our exhibits now, like the final designs of all the exhibits, which includes delivering content to our exhibit designers. And what we've been able to do with our digital asset management initiatives is actually go through over 20 years of marketing data. So we have 20 years of marketing images of various parts of those, being able to pull out things that are relevant to the new exhibits and allow them to be used for the first time in probably 15 or 20 years. So that right there is always very good for them.
Sure. So you would say part of your answer then is that the digital initiatives, the digital supporting the strategic and what I like to call the mission and mandate initiatives across the institution.
Yeah, this is a very full divisional institutional push.
Okay. And where do you sit organizationally? Someone else asked that question.
So I am in the Department of Digital, but I have traditionally I have been in the IT department and I have been in the Research and Collections division as well. I very strongly fit right between, in that borderline between digital and IT.
Okay. And what else is encompassed by the Department of Digital? A lot of GLAMP institutions are refactoring what reports where, and when the web started, it was there, but now it does this. And so what all does this encompass?
So a lot of them are there's a lot of stuff I wish I could talk about. I can't yet, but we're doing a lot of really engaging interactive content. That is all going to be new intellectual property. That is going to be coming out very soon. But digital also does things like podcasts, website redesign, a lot of those things that are traditionally somewhere that would fit somewhere between marketing and IT. that's where we live.
Okay, thanks for that. We had a more specific kind of dam-centric question come in. How do you handle the fact that there's such a diverse mix of assets in your system? Marketing materials, easily, right? I just wake up and do it. Archival copies of scans, etc. Interestingly, do you have a different set? Do you set different user permissions to ensure that archival material is not altered accidentally?
Mm-hmm. That is exactly how. So before we start ingesting any new group into there, I have sat down traditionally with the key stakeholders of that department and made sure, like, who do you want to be able to access this and where? Obviously, from an administrative perspective, I see everything, and so it gets a little bit crowded sometimes. But what I strive to make sure is that the users who are using it are able to find what they need very, very quickly. And so far, it seems to be working very well.
What kind of reporting is helping you govern the system?
Right now, it is a lot. I need to know a lot about who the users are, what they have access to. We also have all of our educational content has been added into our digital asset management system. So knowing how they're using their systems, how they're generating all of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we're still trying to figure out in terms of reporting that would be the best, most effective way to show our metrics of success, but we're still working on that one.
Not at all uncommon. It's most natural to start with how many assets are in there, who are they, where they're being loaded, and then we move to impact on organizational operations. Can I begin to see reporting that helps me measure mission and accomplishment? And that's never going to be in the first X number of cycles of using software of this diversity and complexity.
Yeah.
So surprisingly enough, not at all, you've raised some interesting questions about life with 3D. So I'm going to pass along a couple. One is, to what extent is DAMS involved in the life cycle of 3D assets? Is it simply used for storage and delivery to integrated systems such as web for in-app rendering, or are you involved in in-app rendering and interactivity?
So right now it is predominantly used for storage, but we are actually working with our DAM provider to increase the accessibility of those. And so doing things like integration with websites that do exhibition like Sketchfab, or with research repositories like Morphosource, and really being able to connect those and view the actual assets in the way that we want to see them. So a little bit of both.
Okay. Any particular focus yet on the journey to 3D representation, about website accessibility standards and some of the ADA and standard concerns about accessibility?
Ooh, that's a good one. So we are just starting our new website journey, and I imagine those are actually questions that are going to come up soon. So I don't have an answer yet, but I'm hoping that 6 months from now I might be able to answer that very well.
Good. Well, stay tuned. We'll come back to that question. A question that is always so valuable to get insights from in a journey as complex as yours. Where's the authority control over metadata and metadata, not the governance in terms of requiring it, but adding new fields, taxonomic structures, so on and so forth?
So a lot of that is obviously controlled at the administrator level. And so whenever someone would need a new field added or a field would need to be required, it's just making sure that there is open communication on how this would be used, how the user would end up using it, how it would be governed from our end, and the standards that would be associated with that.
In getting ready for this, did you go through any kind of metadata or kind of terms audit to deprecate outdated or inappropriate semantic tags and things like that?
So one thing I will say is that there was no metadata audit because there was no metadata.
Well, there's a logic. I think there's, I'm trying to think back to all the debate schools I went to, and I'm sure there was some form of logic that was exactly captured by that statement.
Yeah. There's been very little consistency across the 20 years of content that I've been sifting through over the last 2 years. And so a lot of it is just what is what do we need that is easily tagged in the actual image versus what do we need to create. And a big one right now is obviously, since we are in the middle of a transformation, we need to know really quickly and easily what stuff came from the old museum and what stuff came from the new museum, so that we're able to very quickly pull things that we know for a fact these are 100% accurate and ready to go.
That'll be interesting to continually monitor. So what are some of the other use cases for the DAM initiatives that you're underway with that are not directly, say, in exhibitions or in some of the curatorial thesis of the institution?
So one of the things we've been using our digital asset management system for is, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but in our educational content, we are going through our educator resource library, which is all objects and various digital content that is useful for educators who are doing various programming, or if we need like a prop or something to pull information from. And that actually has full integration with our DAM right now, including we are actually redoing the way that we organize our programming. And so all of that is actually built directly into our DAM. So here are the various, say, this is the gallery alignment for these. These are the core topics that you can use this specific item for. Here's various programs that this potentially could be used in. Here's where it's physically located in the building. And so all of that stuff was actually one of the first early adopters of our DAM and are continuously using it. It's always really exciting to see what they're using it for.
Yeah, what a delight to hear that. The Mariners Museum and Park in Newport News, Virginia, has been another real leader in this. And sometimes I think, boy, if I could just have a panel of the impact of DAM on the educational outreach of museums. It's never why the budget gets approved, but sometimes it's a short course to live operations, and it's lovely to hear your affirmation.
And another big thing we're working on right now is with like educational PowerPoints, using our DAM to basically replace any images that were traditionally found online or through Google, and using our own intellectual property in our educational content instead of having to pull things. And that also allows us to realize, hey, we need a photo of the zebra skull, but we have a zebra skull, so we can go get that.
You have a scan of the zebra? Is there a zebra skull on the desk behind you?
So fun fact this is the skull of what is called Australopithecus afarensis. This is an extinct human ancestor who was actually found by former curator at our institution, Dr. Don Johansson. At the time that she was found, this is Lucy, if anyone recognizes the name Lucy. Lucy at the time was the oldest human ancestor that had ever been found, and she was actually found by Cleveland in Ethiopia. And so this is obviously not the real skull, but this is a partial, you can see pieces that are from the real fossil bone versus reconstructions. And so we actually have a lot of really exciting content with these, and it's also really fun to be able to bring this out and allow people to interact with it, because traditionally you can't do that.